Alright, before this video begins, I want to put out a disclaimer. I recorded this before the Daytona 500 began, so keep that in mind as you watch this video. The reason this is being uploaded after the fact is because I was so burned out from recording my other videos, talking about my playoff predictions and my Daytona weekend reviews, of course, which is why I had to hold this one off until now. Anyways, hope you enjoy. The Daytona 500 is just around the corner, and as a new season begins, as always, we have drivers and teams to watch for. Quite a few of them, actually. For this year, I am doing 6 teams. I wanted to do 5, but I just felt like leaving one of these teams and drivers out will be an injustice. Also, I'm gonna be focusing more on the teams part, so there are not gonna be a lot of individual drivers in this season. But anyways, that's because there are so many drivers that are expected to improve as a group, like within their team. So because of that, I just had to include like their entire team. I think there's just like one driver that is from an individual team that I'm gonna talk about. But anyways, here we go. So first off, we have Team Penske. Now, at first you may be asking yourself, what is there to watch for in Team Penske? They are a top 3 organization in NASCAR. Well, you may be right, but there is still a lot to watch for in Penske. Of course, the big elephant in the room being that Brad Keselowski is no more. He has been replaced by up-and-coming Austin Cindric. And in my opinion, I'm gonna say, I don't care what anyone says, Cindric to me is Cup ready. He's not gonna make much noise in my opinion, but it's still gonna be interesting to see how his season unfolds. I expect Cindric to be like in the thick of things, playoff bubble, be in contention to win a few races, but overall like not win the race. I'm gonna say that he's gonna be like on the bubble. He's not gonna win a race, but he's going to be in contention to win a few of them, especially on the super speedways and road courses. I think that those are his main forte. Of course, in the super speedways, he's gonna have a lot of Blaney and Logano are great super speedway racers. And last season, during last year's 500, he showed some muscle as well. He was running top 15 before that fiery crash that took out like almost everyone in the last lap. But yeah, Cindric, of course, in my opinion, he is the lock for Rookie of the Year. I don't think Harrison Burton or Todd Gilliland can touch him. I don't want to put the expectation of Cindric winning a race because rookies usually do not win a race, even if they are like in top equipment. I don't think they will, but yeah. I still expect Cindric to show improvement, especially in the second half of the season. And then in 2023, I think we're gonna really start to see what he is made of. But right now, this season is all about gaining experience and improving as the season goes on. Now, as for the other 2 guys, Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, the 2 of them are gonna be drivers to watch for. As those 2 guys are, in my opinion, competing for who the best driver at Penske will be moving forward. As you know, last season, Ryan Blaney had a breakout year. He finished with 3 wins, and he almost made the championship 4 if it wasn't for Austin Dillon just robbing fenders with Austin Dillon at Martinsville. But of course, I still do not know. I still need to see more from Ryan Blaney. I'm not gonna give him the title of best driver at Penske just because he had one good season. He still needs to prove that he can be the best driver at Penske consistently. If he can prove that, and Logano has a season where Logano has a worse season than Blaney, where he's not the best Penske car, then yeah, at that point, I really might consider passing on the title of best driver at Penske over to Ryan Blaney. So it's really going to me, it's really going to be interesting how Blaney and Logano perform in comparison to each other, because I think similar to what happened with Brad Keselowski when Logano was the new guy on the team, I think this could really determine where Penske moves on as an organization. What Penske's next step will be as an organization. Speaking of Brad Keselowski, the next team is his new team, Rfk Racing. Now, I originally did not have RFK as one of my 5 teams to watch, but I added them as a 6th team after watching, after they swept the duels. Keselowski and Busch swept the duels, and they look pretty good in the process too. Keselowski, as a matter of fact, is my dark horse pick for the Daytona 500, so I feel really proud of that. I feel really proud of seeing Keselowski and Busch especially start popping a lot of people's radar. So I felt like it was fair to give these guys their flowers, because they deserve them. The effects of Brad Keselowski in Rfk Racing, I know the season hasn't officially begun yet, but they have been so overwhelmingly positive that there could actually be a possibility, a very strong chance, that both Keselowski and Busch make the playoffs. Of course, not necessarily on points. More in the case of Busch, I think he's gonna need a win more than likely if he wants to. If he wants to make the playoffs. In the case of Keselowski, I think that even if he's driving inferior equipment now, I feel like his veteran expertise and skill and experience is going to be key. And if it comes down to a points race, I feel like Keselowski can make it to the playoffs on points if there are not that many, assuming of course that there are not that many winners in the regular season. But with the fact that Rfk Racing has been this good already I know Daytona is a super speedway, but the fact that they were this good and they look so solid, this is the most solid Rfk has looked like since forever. I feel like they could pull off a win at a non-super speedway. Now, I know that Brad Keselowski has said it for years that he wants to win at Michigan, and him winning at Michigan will be more to him than winning the Daytona 500. I feel like he can win. I feel like he can win at Michigan now if he continues this up. I know that the season hasn't officially started yet, but they're showing in the duels. They really show, but in the duels, they showed what they are really capable of, and that's where the surprise factor comes in. Rfk Racing is, in my opinion, the biggest surprise team. Not necessarily the wild card team, but more of the surprise team. Like they usually run top 15, but don't be surprised if they usually run top 10. Just like Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher is has been one of the most underrated drivers ever since he joined Roush in a few seasons ago. He's a guy that doesn't really get into much trouble. He keeps the car clean, running at mid-pack. But he can also run top 10 or even top 5, not just on the super speedways, but also on a few 1.5 miles, which used to be RFK's strong suit back when they were Roush in the 2000s decade. So it's going to be interesting to see how Keselowski keeps affecting this team, and how does this team improve with now a veteran driver as their anchor behind the wheel. And speaking of veteran drivers, the next team I want to talk about, and a team that you should really watch out for, is 2311 Racing. Now, this team is the real wild card of 2022. This is a mid-pack team as a startup team. They already showed a lot of muscle with Bubba Wallace. They were immediately a mid-pack team with Joe Gibbs Racing horsepower under the hood. But now that they have, just like Keselowski, they have a veteran presence in Kurt Busch. 2311, they look like this could be a big year for them. Bubba Wallace, in the case of Bubba Wallace, I don't know if he will win races, but if he will win a race like he did last year, but he's gonna look just as strong as he did in the super speedways. He was the most consistent driver on Daytona and Talladega last season. And with Kurt Busch, and as for Kurt Busch, you know, the one Kurt Busch win a year. I don't know if he will win a race, but he has also shown that he can elevate a team just like he did with Ganassi, and he is capable of putting a car in the playoffs, whether it's by winning one race in the regular season or on points. He has done it a couple of times. 2013 with way back when he was driving with Furniture Row Racing. 2020, 2 seasons ago. He won a race, but that came during the playoffs. He made it on points in the regular season. Kurt Busch, to me, is gonna have the same positive impact on 2311. The same positive impact that Keselowski will have in RFK. But the surprise factor and the fact that makes 2311 Racing the real wild cards this season is the fact that they are aligned with Joe Gibbs, and I mean like a close technical alliance. You know, this is a team co-owned by Denny Hamlin, who is a Joe Gibbs Racing driver. So of course, the alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing runs so deep to the point that you could consider the 23 and the 45 the 5th and 6th Gibbs cars. A 5th and 6th Joe Gibbs Racing car, basically. They're running basically the same Joe Gibbs Racing power for the most part. In the case of Mike Wheeler, he was Denny Hamlin's former crew chief a few seasons ago with Joe Gibbs. So they have some Joe Gibbs Racing personnel, for not to say a large majority, but they have easy access to the resources. And since Joe Gibbs Racing is a top tier organization in NASCAR, that really shows how much room and potential 2311 has to grow. Now, whether they reach that potential or not remains to be seen, but the fact that it's possible, it makes them the biggest wild card, in my opinion. And speaking of next gen teams, let's talk about the team that many people compared, myself included, to 2311 Racing all throughout the last season. Trackhouse Racing. So Trackhouse, just like 2311, they also expanded to 2 full-time teams. However, unlike 2311, they do not have a veteran presence. Ross Chastain, sure, he's more experienced than Daniel Suarez, but if you want to know, they're both actually around the same age. Chastain and Suarez are both around like 29, 30 years old. Of course, Chastain is the more experienced driver, but still, the two of them, they are relatively young. They're not seasoned veterans yet. I wouldn't call them that. But still, this team, of course, they don't have a lot of room to improve like a 2311 or RFK because of the lack of a veteran presence. But it's still gonna be interesting to see how they develop in comparison to 2311 Racing, since you know they were compared to last year. And of course, both Kurt Busch and Ross Chastain, they were former teammates at Chip Ganassi. And when Trackhouse bought Chip Ganassi Racing, they basically split. Chastain stayed with the new Trackhouse team that had purchased the Ganassi Racing team, while Kurt Busch went to Trackhouse's rivals in quote-unquote in 2311. So of course, whether you like it or not, they're gonna be compared to Bubba Wallace and Daniel Suarez. They are both Drive for Diversity graduates. Of course, they are also going to be compared to And the fact that they're driving for 2311 and Trackhouse, 2311 is co-owned by Michael Jordan, Trackhouse is co-owned by Pitbull, and yada yada yada, all that stuff. There was so much hype about those two teams last year. That was a major narrative of the season, and it's going to continue this season now that the next gen car is here. As for how they will do, I don't think they will do as well as 2311. I think Chastain is gonna be more of the same, since he's basically driving the same equipment that he did at Ganassi, only that now it's a different banner now. Suarez, I feel like he's going to improve a bit, because now that he has a full season under his belt at Trackhouse, and also the fact that he doesn't have the pressure to perform or lose his ride, at least for the time being, like he had at Joe Gibbs or Stuart Haas. I feel like that's also gonna have relax him a little bit, and he's going to have a better season. Now, I don't think they will make the playoffs on points. I think they're gonna have to win a race to do it, and I don't know if they can. I think probably if one of them make the playoffs on a win, it will probably be Chastain, but I don't know. I cannot see a track where they win, where one of them wins outside of a super speedway. Maybe Suarez wins at Pocono. He's run well there in the past, but anyways, both of them, I feel if they don't make the playoffs, they're gonna be around that top 20-ish points range. I feel like that's a reasonable expectation. They're gonna be around fighting for a top 20 spotting points if they don't make the playoffs. But we're gonna see a bit of improvement from Suarez. Chastain, he's going to be more of the same. But again, the main reason I'm mentioning them is because they're gonna be compared to 2311. So I guess you could link these two teams together, just because they are, the next gen teams. But anyways. Moving on, the next driver, not team, but driver that we're going to talk about is Tyler Reddick. And this is the year. This is the year where Tyler Reddick is going to win a cup race. If there is one guy that is yet to win a cup race on the field that is the most likely to win a race in this season, it's Tyler Reddick. It just has to be. Like, the stars are aligning. I wouldn't say the stars are aligning, but it's very likely with the way that with the growth that he showed in 2021 compared to his rookie season. He was the best rookie of the big three of him, Christopher Bell, and Cole Custer, and he should have won Rookie of the Year in my opinion. I don't care that Cole Custer won a race and made the playoffs that year. He should have been Rookie of the Year, but again, that's a conversation for another day. Reddick has been consistently the best driver of the three. I mean, I guess you can make an argument between him and Christopher Bell, but regardless of who you think is the better driver, you cannot deny that Reddick showed a lot of promise to close out last season. There were races where he was, like Kansas and the Charlotte Roval, where he was keeping up, not necessarily beating, but keeping up with Kyle Larson, a playoff driver. And this is with Reddick after Reddick was eliminated from the playoffs after a terrible round one. But if he made it past the round of 16 last year, I feel like he would have been like a dark horse or sleeper to make it to the round of 8. Championship 4 is not likely because, lack of playoff points. But the fact that he ran really strong to close out the year is what really raised eyebrows for me, and why I feel that this will be his season. This will be the year where he wins a race and he makes it to like a round of 12, potentially a round of 8 run, if depending on how the season goes on for him. But I like what I saw from Tyler Reddick, and I cannot wait to see what he has in store for us in 2022. And finally, the final team we're going to be talking about is Rfk Racing. last season was really a disaster for this team. A team that last season entered as the best team in NASCAR. Last season, Kevin Harvey was coming up of a 9-win season, but didn't win the championship. Of course, I did not expect him to win 9 races again, but he was still heading into the 2021 season. He was entering that season as the best driver still. I expected him to, at the very least, be a factor, make it into the win some races, and be in the thick of the championship hunt. But that's not what happened. As a matter of fact, Harvick was the carrier of Stewart-Haas Racing, and he went winless. And of course, this puts up an important question, because with 2023 being the season where Harvick retires, he said it in his podcast too that he is going to retire in 2023 after the 2023 season, because that's the year where his contract is up. However, I do not really take his word for it until it happens, because how many times have we seen a driver saying, "Oh, I'm going to retire from full-time competition after this season," and then we see them doing a few more years in NASCAR. The most notable example being, of course, Mark Martin. So who's to say that Harvick says that he might retire after 2023? But if he has a good season, and wins a bunch of races, and he returns not to like a 2020 form, but more like he has more like a 2019 type of season where he wins like 4 races, makes it to the championship 4, has a very solid season. He's a championship contender all season long. If that happens, then it's very possible that Harvick stays beyond 2023 and races until like 50 years old, or a little more past that, who knows. My point is, this season is going to be very pivotal for what Harvick might do for the rest of his career. If Harvick has a good season, he possibly races beyond 2023. But if he has a bad season, goes winless, and gets eliminated in like the round of 12 or even round of 16 again, then I really think that the question of Harvick retiring, I think Harvick's really going to consider retiring after 2023. I think that's what's going to really happen. I think he's going to go through with it if he goes winless or doesn't win a bunch of races and doesn't look competitive anymore. I think he's going to call it quits after 2023. If that doesn't happen though, I mean, he might still retire, but I wouldn't bank on it as much. Now, of course, Harvick being the main driver, being the carrier of sorts of Stewart-Haas Racing. But what about Rfk Racing? Harvick went winless in 2021, but the team as a whole, they still won a race. That was Rfk Racing's win at New Hampshire. And Almirola, outside of that win at New Hampshire, he was really abysmal. Of course, most of that can be attributed to the fact that he had a terrible start to the season, where it looked like the racing gods didn't give him a single break. They were just out to get him for whatever reason, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think Almirola's gonna have that terrible of a season. But at the same time, with the playoff bubble being so stacked, I don't know if Almirola will be able to make the playoffs on points like he's always used to doing. I don't know if he will be able to do it. The playoff bubble looks a bit too crowded for me to. The playoff bubble looks a bit too crowded this year for that to happen. Also, add that to the fact that Almirola still has to shake some rust from that terrible 2021 season, and also the fact that he is retiring after this season. That might also creep up into him and affect him a little bit, especially like in the mid-season or in the later stages of the season. But regardless, I feel that Almirola is going to be right in the thick of the playoff bubble, like he always is. He may not, he may make the playoffs, he may not make the playoffs. I am not 100% sure on like the past few seasons. I think that if he makes the playoff bubble, if he makes it to the playoffs this year, it's gonna be by just the skin of his teeth, just barely squeaking by on points. I feel like that's what's gonna happen. And as for the other two guys, Chase Briscoe and Cole Custer, I expect improvement for both of these young guns. Chase Briscoe, last year's Rookie of the Year, that doesn't mean much because his only competition was Anthony Alfredo, but anyways. Briscoe, I expect improvement from him. He's gonna be running like a top 20 guy. I expect that from him. A lot of people are saying that Briscoe is going to be like a playoff driver, is gonna make it to the playoffs. And well, I can see that. Again, just like Almirola, the playoff bubble is way too crowded, and Briscoe, he finished like 30 points, and for most of the season, I know he got better as the season went on, but for most of the season on average, he was like a 20th to 25th place driver. So to go from that to being a playoff driver, like, I know Briscoe, I believe in Briscoe, and I like him a lot, and I really would love to see him make the playoffs in his sophomore season, but again, the Cup Series is just way too competitive. It's just way too competitive out there. So again, if Briscoe makes it into the playoffs, I don't think it's gonna be on points. I think it's gonna have to win. And the same goes to Cole Custer. I do not think Custer is going to be as terrible as he was, but I still feel he's gonna be the worst of the 4 Stewart-Haas racing cars. He's not gonna suck as much, but I feel like he's gonna be that 20th to 25th place driver instead of being like the 25th to 30th place driver that we saw last season. I think it's gonna be more just like Briscoe. I think it's going to improve, but I don't think he will be that close to the playoff bubble like Briscoe or Almirola are. I think it's going to need a miracle like the one he managed to pull off at Kentucky in 2020 if he is going to make the playoffs. But still, I see a lot of potential in Stewart-Haas Racing. This is a bounce back year for them. I expect that to be a bounce back year for them. I have seen a lot of encouraging things coming from this team on the Cup Series side of things, of course. So I feel like if there is a team, if they can bounce back, when they say that they can bounce back, I believe that they really can, and I would take their word for it. And with that, those are all of my drivers and teams to watch for in 2022. Of course, you can drop in the comments below what other driver will you be watching for this season and why. And as always, stay tuned for more. See ya.